And this picture that I saw on my computer, which some of you may be familiar with, and please put it in the chat if you are, and that is the sculpture that sits behind the Pope in the Vatican Auditorium, okay, dubbed the Resurrection, okay? So if you know it, you know that it's been dubbed the Resurrection for a reason. We're going to get into why this caught my attention, this caught my eye, and why I felt that there was a need to talk about it, okay? So I'm looking at this sculpture, okay? And my first initial interpretation of the sculpture, because I've seen it at a distance, it wasn't a picture that was close to where the Pope sits. It was kind of back from the Pope in the auditorium part of the picture. And to look at this picture, I'm like, well, what the hell is that? It looks like, as you get further away, if you stand back from it, you look at it, and it looks honestly like a some type of figure in the center, a distorted figure, if you will, and around it they look like skulls, and they have inset where the eye sockets are. If you look back and you look at it from an advantage point of a distance, it looks like there's these skulls surrounding this person, this avatar in the center, and you really can't make out what it is. So I take the picture. I'm like, what the hell is this? So I take the picture and I look at it closer, and I stretch it and I look at it, and then I'm like, well, I still don't know what this is. This looks like a distorted human being surrounded by, whether it be people grabbing at him, skulls, dead people, dead skeletons, whatever it looked like. I'm like, well, I need to know what this is. This is supposedly in somewhere in the Vatican, something to do with the Pope, something to have some religious context. I need to know why it looks like a horror movie. So I then search it, and I found out the name of it is The Resurrection, made by an Italian sculptor. And it is a modern interpretation, if you will, of Jesus coming out of a nuclear explosion, okay, to represent the current geopolitical situation that we're in as far as our weaponry at this level of our society. That's why he chose that. That's what the vernacular is used in articles that deal with this Italian sculptor. So I'm like, all right, let me go back to it. Let me look at it again with this knowledge of what the sculptor was trying to tell me as an artist. So I look at it again with this knowledge, and I'm going to tell you right now, even with the knowledge that I had, I still saw suffering. I still saw this distorted figure that did not represent Jesus in any way, did not represent a deity of kindness, of retribution, these things that are taught. All I saw was death at the feet of a distorted figure, even with the knowledge that the sculptor was trying to convey to me that this is a resurrection of the second coming of Christ. I didn't get that. I didn't get that feeling. I didn't get that epiphany feeling that Christians, that religious people say they feel oneness and all that. I didn't get any of that. I got, what the fuck is this shit, is what I got from it. All right. So that's what spawned this whole topic tonight. Because then I started going down that rabbit hole. I started trying to understand what in the hell, when they're like, build me a resurrection of modern interpretational, and they come back with this horrifically looking despage, if you will, of death that's going to sit behind this patriarch of a person that you're supposed to equate with love and charity and giveness, if you will, of preaching of equality and things like that. There is nothing in that depiction of the resurrection, again, which is the name of this this sculpture, there is nothing about oneness. There's nothing about humanity. There is nothing about love. This sculpture screams one thing. And you know what it screams? It screams hatred. It screams fear. It screams, I've built this in front of you, my petitioners. I've built this in front of you, telling you something, telling you the opposite of what I'm saying, and you will love me for it. That's what I get from it. I get it's in plain sight. It is a horrific image. It's supposed to fill you with a sort of pride, if you will, if you're religious, if you're one that follows the teachings of Jesus Christ. You're supposed to feel like a oneness in this room. That it looks like they're blowing apart human remains, and there's a deity above them looking down on that in such a way that he is, I feel, it looked like he was complacent with it. So that's what I felt when I saw this. Okay. So then, of course, if you look at and just the audaciousness of it, which I'll get back to, because I want to bring around the whole idea of what I'm talking about here. And that simply is also, it's an auditorium. Now, I went around and looked at a lot of information about this auditorium, and even on like Joe Rogan and these other podcasts and these other articles, there's a lot of misinterpretation about what this is. This is not a church, okay? This is not a church. It is not a building that is a go-to religious what's the word that they use, like where a worshiping area, things of that nature. This is more of a media presence auditorium. This is where he gathers if it's storming, if it's raining, if the weather is intermittent. This is where he goes to do his weekly sermon, if you will, or if there's a special occasion, or if there's a media event. That's what this building, which was redone in 2008. That's what it's for. So let's look at the building. All right. So then you have the sculpture behind him, and I'll come back to that because, again, that's just blatantly a slap in the face, I think the sculpture is. And then I'm looking at, there's a theory about the auditorium. There's a theory about the way it looks. There's a conspiracy-esque idea that when you enter the building, it looks like a snake. They even dub it on the internet, the Snake Auditorium. Okay? So when you come into the auditorium, supposedly it looks like a snake, and it has that serpentine look. And of course, the snake is a pertinent character in the overall story of Christianity. We know that. So that is something that caught my attention. So then I took that picture, because there's a myriad of them on the internet. And I look at this picture, and then I find out that 99% of these pictures that you see where this auditorium looks like a snake, they're all taken with a fish lens on a camera, or a wide angle lens on a camera. Okay. That's why you see this curved nature. That's why you see the eyes so close together. That's why you see the pillars that are on the stage, which are not lined up vertically. They're not. And in turn, but if you curve it like anything, just like if you throw a filter on my face, I look like a model. Same idea. All right. Cameras in interpretational images from a camera in 2023 or in the last decade can be easily manipulated in the hand of a person. So I want to preface my point going forward with this auditorium is that. So that when you take a real picture, a standard, 6x9, no particular lens, straightforward picture of the auditorium from the inside, it does not look like a snake. There is no snake-esqueness. The windows are no close together than you could perceive a face of any sort. And the pillars are lined up horizontally in a shape that, not horizontally, but kind of like diagonally horizontal. So there are no fangs. Okay. It looks by any stretch of imagination like a normal, other than that, other than the Jesus exploding behind him, it looks like a normal auditorium. Okay? So, but with that said, that brings me to the second part of that. Okay? And that is simply this. I don't care what you do when you build a building. I don't care what your idea is. I don't care what your image is. I don't care what your foreshadowing is. But I can tell you one thing that I think, and I think possibly in the minds only because of the statue behind him, in the minds of the architecture, I find it uniquely entertaining that when you do use a fish eye lens or a longer exposure lens, that the fucking auditorium looks like a fucking snake. Now, with that said, people will say, and I'm one of those people, I'd be like, well, just use a regular camera and you don't see that shit. Okay, fine. I agree with that. But I'm going to tell you right now, if I pick out 50 auditoriums randomly on the planet, and I take a picture with all of them with a fish eye lens, how many of them are going to look like a fucking snake? How many? Not many. So my point is, and this is even a stretch for me, because normally I wouldn't say this, but I'm leaning on the side that these fools knew exactly what they were doing. They knew exactly what would happen if you distorted the image and what you would get out of that image if you did so. So normally I would say, you know what? You're a bunch of kooks. You're a bunch of goofballs. You're taking this picture and distorting it. But then in this particular instance, especially, I find interesting that you can distort the image to be a fucking snake, which then is also a pivotal character in your narrative storyline. That is what I find interesting. Give a shit about the lens. I give a shit about the fact that when you build it, that it can even look like anything but a building, no matter what fucking lens I use. That's my problem with it. Okay? So that's, again, you look at the sculpture, there's not a person. I don't know how they walk their asses out onto that fucking stage with a straight face and not look at that sculpture and be like, these motherfuckers are the stupidest fuckers on the planet. They don't see what we're doing. They don't see this fucking sculpture is a fucking fist up their ass, because it is. But they don't. They just walk that fucking old man out, crippled as shit, sit him down. He just sits there with that sculpture of death behind him, also knowing that the fucking auditorium looks like a goddamn snake at certain angles. And then he reads his fucking weekly sermon to these believers. That's what spawned this. That you're not going to fucking tell me that they don't see both of those things. There isn't a fucking conscious person with an IQ of 36 that could walk up on that stage and be like, this is the creepiest fucking shit I've ever seen. Period. I don't give a shit what it is. I don't give a shit if it's in a supermarket. It's fucking creepy. Okay? So don't tell me how they built this sculpture and it's beautiful and it's such a I don't even know the word I'm trying to think of, just a gift of Jesus or whatever the fuck they want to call it. It's horseshit. This sculpture is meant to be straight in your face. Hey, look at us. Yeah, we want your money. We want your belief system. We want you to kiss our feet when we wash them with tap water. But by the way, look behind me. What do you think of that shit? Oh, by the way, all of you that came in here today to kiss my water feet, this fucking auditorium looks like a snake at certain angles, by the way. How do you like that? How do you like that? All right. So you take these things, you take these ideas, and you can't just, and I'd love to wash them away. I love to look at them from a different angle. But the blasphemy and the whole idea of him sitting there with that behind him irks the fuck out of me. Because it's basically to all the people sitting in that auditorium, they're like, no matter what we do, no matter what we say, no matter what we show you, you will believe exactly what we fucking tell you. Whether it's a statue behind me that looks like it should be in, the new Conjuring movie, or if I tell you somebody walked on water. It's that simple. And that's my problem overall. It's this blatant, utter disdain for their believers. It truly is. To build that sculpture, to build that auditorium, to make it, and by the way, the auditorium has been there for a while. This remodeling of it in 2006 or 2008 was where this snake face came from, okay? So it didn't always look like that. So again, it probably didn't look like that before it was remodeled. So when you have your guy remodeling this auditorium, you're like, oh, hey, why don't we get these windows in a circular manner with irises in the middle, and make sure the pillars that hold up the back end of the stage, make sure they're positioned in a way that if you stand one way or another, they look like they're just one pillar. From an architectural standpoint, maybe not. Maybe that's, feng shui bullshit. But you can't tell me, and I will never believe for a fucking second, that when they commissioned the guy to redo the interior of this auditorium, that they weren't like, check this shit out. Check what happens when I bend this with this lens. They fucking knew that if they took a picture with a curved lens, that they got a fucking snake. I don't give a fuck what they say. You know what? Why don't you just do crown molding on the fucking ceiling instead of those fucking ridiculous lines that come across as reptilian skin? Why not just make it just white, smooth white? All right? No, we can't do that, can we? Then you lose that snake-esqueness if it's just a white ceiling. Or how about we make the windows rectangular and just go all down the wall rectangular? Just as beautiful, but doesn't really show off the snake, does it? And again, I don't believe or fall into this bullshit easily. But these two items got me fired up. These two items got me in a situation where I can't look away and say, you know what? This Italian designer that did this sculpture, he really caught the essence of Jesus. Did he though? Did he? I can guarantee you, give me 15 minutes, I'll come up with a photograph or a drawing that will be artistic, that could be modernism, and it shit sure would give an idea of the resurrection, but it wouldn't look like a bunch of skulls with eye sockets looking up at a deity. It wouldn't. So that's my issue with the sculpture. And my issue with the auditorium as a whole is simply that when you're building this, when you're redesigning the interior, you tell me you don't fucking know what it's going to look like when it's photographed. Give me a fucking break. You did. You knew it would look like a snake because that's what you wanted it to look like. Period. So these are huge things that I blatantly saw, that I blatantly was like, okay, well, what else are they doing? All right. So you look at this, you look at what else they're doing. I could go on for 5 days of the shit I found, but I picked out some of the more strange, of course, things. One of them, by the way, if you want to know who the sculptor was, it was Fazzini. Fazzini was the sculptor, or the artist that did the sculpture for the resurrection, if you will. If you want to look him up and see his work. And yes, it's cutting edge. Yes, it's edgy. I get that. But ultimately, if you're painting a duck and it doesn't look like a duck, then is it a duck? I don't know. So, all right. So a lot of things come up weird. Okay, when you're dealing with the Vatican, when you're dealing with the Pope, things like that. And again, this you have to if you don't understand the power that the Vatican has or the Pope has, then you're not looking at it from an objective standpoint. As I did the research, as I look into it, because again, I'm not a Christian. So I'm learning this stuff, I'm looking at it, things of that nature. And you really don't understand the complexity and the power that this sovereign state, again, keep in mind, this is a sovereign state. It's its own country, you know, within the walls of Rome. So it has, I think it has like 400 some residents. That's it. But it has its own laws. It has its own police force, its own schools, everything. And the land beneath it, which we'll get into, is a sovereign state. You know, the U.S. just can't come over if they have a treaty with London or Rome and say, well, we're going to walk over here. They can't do it. Can't do it. All right. So keep that in mind as we talk about the power that this Vatican City, this Pope has. So in the weird things they do, now everybody knows about the secrets, the paperwork they have in the basement, all this stuff. But did you know that some of the big Christian crusades, some of the mass killings of Christians, do you know they have open graves in Rome? All right, because at the time before they built the Vatican, there was a lot of that going on because Christianity wasn't the main story here. Okay, Mussolini and them guys, they weren't about it until they realized people were leaving. And then they were like, just like anything, just like me, dropping from 15, 20 and goes down to 2 because I said something. I'm like, wait, don't leave. I'm going to say something that you're going to like better content. Come back. So that's what they do when they adopt Christianity. So they adopt it. And of course, they anoint like 20 popes, and then they start building this Vatican City. But they're building it on pretty much dead Christian bones, by the way. So more people they don't talk about a lot is the fact that the Vatican City is pretty much built on dead Christians. So keep that in mind. That's one factor of the building. The other factor of something else about the building I want to point out is the obelisk that's in the center of they don't call that Vatican Square. What do they call it? St. Pete's Cathedral or whatnot, that area. That obelisk is a stolen obelisk from Egypt. It was stolen and brought to Rome. And honestly, no, they don't talk about it. They don't talk about why they adopted it in the middle of St. Petersburg Square there. They don't talk about why they have a stolen object there. And they don't even talk about, there's been rumors there's something in the obelisk, whether it be dead bodies, dead Christian bodies, things like that. So you have these things that surround this that are factual, that the Pope and the Vatican never talk about. That there's facts in the fact that it's built on dead Christian bones. It's a fact that obelisk is stolen and doesn't even belong to them. But yet they put it in a predominant area that people visit by the masses. So that's a strange, unusual thing that happens there. So also one of the interesting things that I found was that they do weird, I could generalize a lot of stuff they do, everybody knows all that, but I picked out some weird stuff. Like they had a trial for a dead pope that had died 7 months prior to his trial. They dig the pope up. Okay, they dig him up, put their garb on him, their religious garb, sit him up. Now he's been dead for 7 months, so I'm sure he looks amazing. They put him in court like this, and then they assign a lower ranking priest to speak for him. Because guess what? If you didn't know, dead people can't fucking talk. I'm not sure if you knew that. So not only is he smelling, he can't talk, and they got him propped up in this religious garb. They find him guilty, amazingly enough. Should have had a better lawyer. I don't know. I've never been on trial after I was dead. So my point is, these are the people, okay? These are the people that you bring into your home on Sunday, These are the people that have political power globally. Okay, they have say in things. The multi-billion-dollar revenue generating machine, and again they did this, back in antiquity or 1800 or 800 BC or whatever. But I don't care because they haven't changed their thought process in 2,000 years. I don't give a shit. What I care about is that they dug a dead person up, sat him up in court with his dead ass, and treated him like he was still alive. Now, what kind of people are you following if this is the nature of what they do? Okay, so that's one other thing. Other thing is, and you might find this interesting, or you might find it exciting. I don't know. It depends what kind of person you are. But by the way, did you know that the Vatican has, wait for it, the largest porn collection on the planet? I said it. Boom, done. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you enjoy the Pope, that he also enjoys naked women. Okay, they're supposed to abstain from that, right? From what I understand. So not only do they not abstain, but they have the largest porn collection on the planet. And when I say porn, they're talking about any eroticism, if you will. So regardless of how you define it, it's still porn. And they have there's been several researchers or whatnot that have said this, 3 or 4 of them. Of course, they deny it. But if you're going to do something, do it right. And I guess that's the Vatican way. So if you're going to have porn, you're going to have the best collection or the largest collection of porn, I guess. So that's another thing that people don't talk about. The other thing, which we'll have to step around, because I don't really want to get into it too much, and obviously that is all the lawsuits and things of that nature against children. There's also a group of people that are constantly blackmailing these men, because they have like the largest group of male and male liking situation, and because of that, they don't discriminate in age. So there's this outside group that keeps saying, well, we know that you're that, we know this. And they say to them, well, we know you're this and that too. So they kind of trade quibs to try to keep each other in place. But the bottom line is, it's infiltrated with this situation. And the only thing I want to get into with that is simply this. Again, this is a sovereign state. This is supposed to be the chair of Christianity, right? This is supposed to be the deity leader, global leader of this movement. And the one thing they can't escape is these desires, these earthly desires that they're supposed to give up, and they don't. And not only don't they give them up, though, they also partake in things that are extraordinarily against current societal standards, if you will. Now, yes, you got married back in Roman times when you were 10. I get that. But as we change societal interpretations, as we've done now, those things are not accepted. And in turn, we've moved away from that, and they have not. So they have a lot of that going on, which they say every time they get caught, they're like, oh, well, we're going to fix this. We're going to criminalize this. We're going to go ahead and do this. But you know what they do? What they do is they take the 4,000 accused and they just ship them around in different parts of the world, because this is a global conglomerate that can do that. So not but 20 people, I think, as of today, have ever prosecuted and gone to prison. But you got like 4,000 that were accused from 1950 till now. So you have a lot of that going on. Okay, so that's another aspect that I'm going to get to as I transition into the other aspect that they have problems with, and that's financial situation. This is a multi-billion-dollar corporation is what it is. And in turn, with that kind of money comes influence. So when you have that kind of money, you have that kind of influence. So, and they use that influence a lot. There is documentation. Again, they always seem to show up. They always seem to show up when you don't want them to, okay? AKA, they show up during, well, I should say after World War II. There's documentation of them helping Goebbels and that whole fucking crew, excuse me, that whole crew as an underground railroad of sorts to get them to different parts of the world. There are actual travel documents that have been stated for Goebbels and his whole crew to get out of Eastern Europe and places like that to try it, so they didn't get their throats cut for the atrocities that they did. So that is something that, again, they show up at these times. They show up at these lawsuits of these kids. They show up at this situation where they shouldn't be. This is supposed to be a group of people, a religion, if you will, of people that are here to help you transition to some type of afterlife, to give you a sense of purpose, to give you a sense of community, to give you a sense of who you are. And they keep showing up where they're not supposed to. They show up in small numeric number mail rooms. They show up helping people that have killed hundreds of thousands. They show up where you have secrets about things you shouldn't have secrets about. Okay? And again, as a side note to do is some of these other funnier things that they do. They also they're also into space, because I'm going to transition this into another aspect of the Vatican where we get closer to the New World Order, if you will. And that is one thing, they have a whole space division, if you didn't know that. So they have one of the second largest binocular telescope. Now, the reason why I say binocular, because that's specific to the lens structure of the telescope. So it isn't like it's one of these giant powered telescopes that cost $50 million, $100 million, $200 million that NASA has or whatnot. Now, they will let you believe that when you read the stories, but I read beyond the story, and I know that a binocular telescope is not something that NASA runs to use when they're trying to, they put them in space like they do, and they use those. So this telescope, though, is the second largest on the planet, though, when it comes to binocular. What are they looking for? Okay, I thought Jesus is going to come down to Earth. Are they going to find him flying in space? I'm asking, because I don't know why they need a telescope. Okay, so, but the other side of it is, the rumor is the telescope's name is Lucifer. That's a whole thing on the internet. But as you dig deeper beyond that, you'll find the telescope's name is not Lucifer. They share the facility with another astrological group, and they named their telescope Lucifer because just to be a smart ass next to them. So their telescope is not named Lucifer, no matter what you see on the internet. You got to look beyond that. You got to look at the company that works next to them, and they have their telescope listed as Lucifer. It's not the Vatican one. They just share the space with them. So my point is, though, what's the Vatican need space for? Okay? That's one thing that I found also strange about them. But the reason why they need space is because they also, and if you look at even the current Pope, they say they wear this garb. They have this shawl, if you will. They have a shawl that shows different hieroglyphic depictions of secular beings or whatnot. But also, they'll wear a certain garb where they're at if they're trying to honor a certain society or whatnot, say they're in Mexico or something like that. Well, it's funny because they have a alien depiction on one of their garbs that they go out in the Vatican with, that they said they only use because it's a Mexican deity or something like that. They're trying to honor their belief system or whatnot. But yet, when I looked at that, I looked at the picture of this garb that they wear, and it shows up at the Vatican all the time. Okay? So I'll get to the red shoes. So he has this garb, and he wears it all the time, and it has this depiction of an alien on it. And the reason why they say that is because a lot of them, and when I say them, I mean these lower subordinates, are supposedly in contact with extraterrestrials. Now, that part I don't know. That's a little bit of a stretch. I don't know how much I believe that per se until I get into the people that kind of intertwine with the Pope and the Vatican. But supposedly that's why they wear that, to honor these interstellar beings that they're in contact with, where they get a lot of their knowledge and things like that. So there are pictures of this. These are provable facts. Now, the fact part that represents an alien, I mean, that's neither here nor there. So that's something that you'd have to really delve into. But it is there. It is on their garb that they wear, and it is provable that they do have that artifact on there. One of the strange things about that is that then you get into like Dave Icke and them guys. Okay, they're firm believers that this New World Order that we're discussing is perpetuated a lot by the large Christianity groups. Obviously, the Vatican being one of the largest, is perpetuating this idea of aliens or non-human biological entities because they are controlling the planet. Okay, so they say, like Dave Icke and them guys say the reptilians are controlling the planet. They say the reptilians are in the Vatican. They've infiltrated the Vatican. So the Vatican will represent it as Satan getting into the Vatican, say all these things that occur. But then David Icke and these guys, they'll say that it's the reptilians. It's these otherworldly beings, if you will. So that's where you kind of tie in that you need Christianity, that you need the Pope, that you need the Vatican, that you need the 1 billion followers that you have with Christianity to be able to believe in this system. Because if they don't, then it doesn't work. Okay, so that's a big part of it too. And it's interesting. A couple other things that I wanted to mention before I move totally into the New World Order is that I find interesting too that the hat that they wear, it says, and I'm gonna butcher this, but it's something of Vicaris Fil Dei. Okay, that's what their hat says. So you take that saying and you break it down for its numerical value, and it stands for 666. Now, of course, this was found fairly quickly. You know, you can't get away with anything too much, even if you're doing it right in their face. So their response was that the V at the end of Vicaris was supposed to be a U. It was just a mistake. But the funny thing about it is they never changed it. Again, they built a sculpture that looks like a monster is eating humanity. Do you think they give a shit about a word that most people can't even pronounce, representing 666? No, they could give a shit. So ultimately, but these are the things that are in the open, you know, that they just don't give a shit that they do in front of you, because especially if you're a believer, you're so vested into this that you're not going anywhere, because you have to have that redemption. You have to have that to pass on. And they could pretty much rip out the heart of a baby and slap it to their forehead, and they'd be like, well, that's for the greater good. So that's where I get into, like, at what point do you not take pause on the all these aspects? And as far as Pun, you were talking about the shoes. They referenced the shoes to one of the popes. I think not the current one. No, I think it was the current one, because he's been in power for 15, 20 years now. And they asked him, the shoes, the red shoes, they represent the blood of Jesus Christ, is what they're supposed to represent, which is weird to me also, because you're walking in the blood of your deity. I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean. But, well, you say no, Pun, but that's what they said. Literally, that's what the Pope is quoted as saying. So I don't know why you're saying no. This is what the Pope says. The Pope said it. One of your conspiracy theorists may not agree, but I'm telling you, look it up. That's what the Pope says. The Pope says the red shoes represent the blood of Jesus Christ. Well, he never said that. So the other aspect I want to get to, as far as one of the other things I didn't want to leave out, is Give me 1 second here. I just want to. Oh, it's this book that they have, this Grand Grimoire. Okay, they have this book that's supposed to. And again, why do they have this book? I don't understand this. This Grand Grimoire book is supposed to be the preeminent number one, no copies. Well, there's supposedly these fake copies out there. There's one copy that's supposed to be in the Bahamas or something. Why the Bahamas? I don't know. Maybe when you have a book of evil, you retire to the Bahamas. I don't know. But this book, this Grand Grimoire book, is supposed to be a book of evil spells. And not just evil spells, it's supposed to be able to, the only book they say, that's supposed to be able to bring Lucifer. You can call Lucifer with it. Now, my situation, again, this is like the sixth thing I've stated. Why does the Vatican have it? And how do they get a hold of it? Why do they have access to all this evil? Are they doing it because they're protecting you? Are they doing it because people are bringing it to them to exercise whatever it is that this evil is? But I wonder if they have this book, and again, they're supposedly are the only ones that have the original copy. And the reason why that's important is because the original copy has all the dictation that's proper to do these spells. In other words, if you move one letter, if you move one connotation, any type of verbiage changes, it just doesn't work. So they have the only copy, supposedly, that has the exact vernacular to bring Satan to earth, or to bring evil deities or whatever to earth. And they are supposedly have it somewhere locked away in their, their dungeon of secrets. So that's another example of, not 6 or 7 now at this point, that associate the Vatican, associate the Pope with evil. Okay? The Antichrist, I have a thing for that too. What were they called? They call that the unholy trinity. I was looking that up. So the holy trinity is Satan, Antichrist, and a fake prophet. That's their unholy trinity. Now, obviously, we know Satan, Lucifer. We know the Antichrist is supposed to be somebody that's human, that's supposed to have this great following, to have the love of the people, and not just the love of the people, but across the board, whether you're, no matter what nationality you are, things like that, you're just this great human being that's going to bring everybody together. And then they have this fake prophet. And when I wanted to read up on what the fake prophet meant, because I'm not familiar with the unholy trinity, but I'm familiar with Satan and the Antichrist somewhat, to whatever arm's length I have. But I was looking at the fake prophet situation, and that is what they call that is simply somebody that aligns himself with the deity, that states that they have access to the deity in some way. So that technically, a fake prophet can be anybody. But I'm guessing their trinity would be somebody pretty powerful. So the Antichrist and the fake prophet are two different things. And if you disagree with me, you can look it up. It's a trinity, trust me. But that's interesting again, because again, why do they have literature on that? These are all these things that are placed in a place that's supposed to be holy. There is a lot of unholy shit going on at the Vatican, at the Pope. Why are they holding on to all this stuff? Well, that's a good place to transition. You want to know why they're holding on to it? You want to know why they need this power? You want to know why they have all this money? Because ultimately, to move to a new world order, a one world government, you have to have these things. If you're not controlling the narrative, which would be the positive and the negative, because you can't run around speaking about Jesus and God and purity if you don't have your finger on the pulse of the opposite. Everybody knows that you can't speak intelligently if you don't know both sides of the story. Only idiots come into a room with one side of the story, okay? So they're going to have both, all right? And they're going to need money to get it done. So ultimately, and another aspect of the money situation, as we go towards why they need this money to have this new world order, is that, did you know that currently they're still going through a lot of financial BS. currently, because there's so much money. When you have such a conglomerate, no one knows where that $5 went. Let's be realistic. When you get that large. But what they have found is that if you send $10 to the Vatican for that poor little kid to eat, only $2 of it gets to the kid. The other $8 goes to the Vatican. Now think about that from a multi-billion-dollar standpoint. How much money do you think is getting to these poor people, to these people that need help? And the rest of it's going to the Vatican, to all these practitioners and things like that. A lot of it. So again, though, even if it's going to them, that's still a ton of money left over. So what are you doing with the money? Well, I'll tell you what they're doing with the money. There's several groups that have spawned off from not so much the Vatican, but the influential needs of the Vatican. One of the interesting ones that I liked was the Bilderberg Group. The Bilderberg Group, Bilderberg, Bilderberg Group. If you know anything about conspiracies, if you know anything about New World Order, then you know this name, okay? It's one of the largest groups of political figures. Yeah, Bilderberg, yeah. That's what I was trying to say. So Bilderberg is an organization. It's been around since, 1954, I think it established. And a lot of it's interesting because it has European orientations. So there was some talk of whether they're worried about Americanism, and that's why they formed, because they didn't want to be in a situation where America was too powerful, things of that nature. So a lot of these European affluents were getting together, but it's manifested itself into a group of people that meets today once a year. And it's some of the most powerful individuals on the planet are in this group. And you don't ever hear about it. You don't hear about, the Bilderberg Group getting together July 5th, okay, or whatever the date, but they do. And when they get together, they even call their people, what would they call them? They're steerers. They actually call these people steerers, as if they're steering something. Steering opinion, steering global economics. They're called steerers. This is a situation that is frightening. And there are parts of the Vatican and parts of the global Christian movement that are a part of this also. Now, again, I always go back to the fact that if you are a religious situation, what are you doing in a power broker group meeting once a year? Always interesting to me. Because, again, I'm not trying to be a dick, but again, your job is to help your billion people transition to the afterlife. That's your job, isn't it? Which I don't even get started on why you need so many secrets and why you need a basement full of secrets, why you're built on dead bones and all. That'll be the end of the discussion. But my point is, that's your purpose, right? So I don't see where the Bilderberg Group comes into play pushing Jesus, because I can guarantee that these people, these financiers and all these people that meet in this group have nothing to do with Jesus. I can promise you that. So, the New World Order, what are we looking at here? Is it just the Bilderberg Group? No. The New World Order is just a combination of groups, a combination of people that are, we can throw out names like the Rothschilds and, all those names like that. The Carnegies, the Rockefellers, things like that. And a lot of these families that are still around are tied within this type of movement. They really are. There's about, and I have a paper here, just to name a few. This Bilderberg Group, that's one of like 9 groups. There's Bohemian Club, the Club of Rome. You got the Council on Foreign Relations. You got Rhodes Trust. Of course, you got Skull and Bones. You got the Trilateral Commission. Now, let's just stop right there for a minute. What the fuck does a Trilateral Commission have to do with religion? Nothing. But you know what it does have to do with? a new world order. Why? Because, and that's only a few, there's still 3 or 4 of them. So these are groups that get together. These are groups that, and again, they have terms called steerer. Like, if you're calling a person a steerer because they can move global opinion, what the fucking hell are you doing? All right? Think about that for a minute. Think about that. Because you don't need these groups to get together for the masses when, again, the masses aren't even aware of these groups and or their meanings to begin with. Okay? So with that said, you're in a situation where you have this New World Order, these groups, individuals, these Skull and Bones, the Trilateral Commission, again, the Bohemian Club. Some of these people have never even heard of. But these are powerful groups, all right? And that's not to mention the American side of it, because a lot of these are European. But they're, we know the companies or the global conglomerates that the U.S. has, And again, these groups are meeting. They're meeting alone. They're meeting on their own. They're meeting in places you and I will never know. Okay? But they're making decisions for you and I. Okay? Now, ultimately, when we talk about a New World Order, are we talking about 5 people, 10 people, 20 people? No, roughly, if you look at what they're trying to do, a totalitarian situation, they say roughly if you take the straight numbers for these groups, and it looks to be about 350 people would be the groups that you'd be looking at. That's the number of people that would run the entire planet. And there's 5 billion of us. Now, I need you to put that in perspective for a minute. 355 people governing 5 billion. Does that reach you as a disparity? So that is something I find interesting there. So welcome everybody that's coming through here. I appreciate you listening to me. Tonight's topic is New World Order. We're talking about the different groups that make up possible conspiracies about that world order. Make sure you're liking and sharing the live. I want to get more people in here talking about this. This is an important topic. This is a global reaching topic. I know there's more people that have opinions of whether the Pope and the Vatican are part of this New World Order. Are they trying to move global geopolitics in a way that supports only them? Do you really think the average trash guy, the garbage man, do you think that they're working for him? That is something, that we're not sure of. We got Pun. Come on, give me 1 second, Pun. Let me make sure I finish up this last part here. Also, along with all these groups, I don't want to minimize the fact that, and this is one of the interesting other facts that are involved in these meetings, and I'm sure this is no surprise, but again, it not being a surprise to you should bother you. The Global Central Bank has been known to come to these Bilderberg meetings. Okay? So that is interesting to me. So again, to bring back what I'm saying here, you've got a situation, okay, where you have, again, this stems from my initial conversation about the sculpture at the Pope's auditorium, the blatant slap in the face of just sheer death that surrounds the Vatican, that surrounds the Pope, the evil that surrounds, and how they just blatantly brush it off as the smoke of the devil, as they call it, as they've been quoted. And in turn, using this power, using this money, using this evil that is blatantly in front of everyone to then facilitate this Bilderberg group, these other ones, Bohemian Club, Club of Rome, Council of Foreign Relations, the Rhodes Trust, the Skull and Bones. These are actual organizations that are real. I haven't mentioned Illuminati, of course, yet. But ultimately, my point being that they fall somewhere, maybe not dead center, but pretty much off center to the global politics of what the New World Order would be. Again, the Pope sits at the chair of Christianity. You have to remember that. That's what they. No, Matt. The topic is a combination of New World Order brought on by the fact that I was looking at a lot of the Vatican, the Pope, the evil that comes out of there. I ran across that sculpture that sits behind him in his auditorium, and it just went from there. That Fazzini sculpture that looks like it's clearly supposed to be it's supposed to be Jesus, but it's not. It's a ridiculously frightening scene that he sits in front of every week, and of course the snake-esque look of the auditorium if you twist the camera with a fisheye lens. Those are the kind of things we're talking about. Right now, we're going to have Punk come on. I know he's itching to give his opinion, but right now what we're talking about is basically the global elite, and there's a lot more than I knew of. There's a lot more societies that have global influence, that meet every year, and these are real groups of people that we have to be aware of. So let's give Pun an opportunity here.
Negative.
Excellent.
I have to work tomorrow, Donnie.
Oh, I don't know what day it is.
It's Tuesday. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so you're talking about groups of people that meet. Okay,
Correct.
you left out the World Economic Forum that meets, and you have the leader of the World Economic Forum by the name of Klaus Schwab, and his little protege is a man named Yuval Noah Harari. And his biggest thing is history began when humans invented gods and will end when humans become gods. So you're talking about an ideology that these secular groups have and these secrets that they hold. And it's all of the same ritualistic ideologies because these guys meet and they are the quote steerers. Okay, so they economically they control countries. Well, they have. Okay, in my opinion, I think it's coming to an end because more and more people are waking up. But 7, 8 years ago, and for decades, I mean centuries even, these people have collectively gotten together in their groups and steered the way that the geopolitical planet was going to go. And the Vatican falls, I mean, that is like the tip there. That's everything flowed through the Vatican. They have their own bank. They have tunnels for miles under Rome. And I won't
They
go too
do.
far into that because I don't want people to lose sight of just what the topic is tonight. But when you're talking about a guy by the name of Klaus Schwab, who runs the World Economic Forum, who then have presidents and people and big CEOs and industry come to these meetings that they hold for a week at a time. It's very secretive. There's no press in there. All of their meetings are behind closed doors, but you have Bill Gates, you have these people that go and they meet and they come up with what, in my opinion, a way to control everything, the economics, the agriculture, just everything you can imagine that people use in their everyday lives. And this little protege, this Harari character, if
Yeah.
you really look into him, he is into basically what mind chips in the brains. You know,
Yes. Yeah, I read a little bit about he wants everybody to have a chip in their brain.
correct. And what he wants is the thing is when he believes that humanity or mankind can become gods, it goes against everything that is natural because you're taking something and whatever you put in your body to and they'll sell you a bill of goods. Well, it's you can enhance your memory. You can have this at the thought. You can know the definition of this word or know a second language or
Well, wouldn't
whatever.
that go against the New World Order though if everybody had that power?
Well, think about it though. If they create if they create the latest and greatest, okay, I'll break it down like this. A Tesla vehicle. We all know Teslas, they have problems because these cars can they can shut these cars off if they wanted to. What's to say they can't shut you off if they wanted to?
So
And this
you're
goes
saying the reach is what they're going for, which then falls back to the global dominance.
well, there's no free will with implants, is what I'm trying to say. You don't have the natural God selected free will if you have an implant. You could have something put in your head that could erase the God gene, if you will. Okay.
Well, I want to see how that ties into the topic though. Are they
Because the New World Order is all about control and enslavement. Okay, the very few control the masses, and what they do, what they eat, what how they spend their recreation, everything, their thought process. They want to control it all. That's why you talk about smart cities. That's a New World Order agenda. They'll call it the New Green Deal agenda. They don't come down on countries that are like China or India that are polluting because, oh well, they're developing countries, but they're going to slap taxes and tariffs on everybody else like us. And Klaus Schwab's saying is, you will own nothing and you will love it and you'll be happy. No, no, they want total dominance and control over the masses. A very
okay?
few.
And that's where we tied into the New World Order. So ultimately, these groups all. So who do we? So the Economic Forum. You think that's the top tier one of all these groups?
Oh, absolutely not. No, no, no. That's just in the public eye. Um, the Council of 300. Okay, they're not even at the tip. It's honestly, Donnie, it's the man or people behind the curtain that we don't know their names. We
Correct. I
don't
would
know their
agree with that.
names. We just
Ultimately,
know what's
if
put
we
out.
know, that's why I thought like probably 7 8 years ago when I discovered the name Rothschild, if you will. So I'm like, oh man, how will they ever let that name out? This, that, and the other thing. But the truth is, if it gets down to me and I know their name, then they're insignificant in the larger grand scheme of things. Because the truth is, I believe what you just said, and I believe it in my heart, that the people that actually run shit, no one knows who they are. They have anonymity. They don't care to be known. They'll never be known. In the amount of power and control they have of the planet, it is unfathomable to probably even this conversation. So I believe that. So when I talk about the Rothschilds or we talk about the New World Order, that I honestly believe that is just the front end of it. Honestly,
And you got to figure, Donnie, how do they control people? How do they control? One would ask, okay, well, how would they control politicians? How would they control world leaders? And I'll take you back just a few years ago. There was a certain guy that had an island. You know who I'm talking about? Who didn't kill himself? You know that guy,
yeah,
right? Okay, so that guy, along with these people we don't know their names, they honeypotted people. Okay, they had cameras in rooms. He had a ranch in Mexico called Zorro Ranch, and they were there. They had cameras in all of these rooms. So all of these high influential people, judges, chiefs of police, politicians, they would get honeypotted. They get trapped in video. Let's just say of younger people,
yes,
and they would get blackmailed, so they're
yes.
doing what they're told to do. And I could go into what I
I
think,
agree
but
with that. That
it's
goes back to what I told you that I read about the Vatican. There's this group of people that are holding the men, and they're, by the way, as of just last year, recently, they're still infiltrated into the Vatican. These clergy that partake in the younger facade, so they haven't gone anywhere. So, but there is a group of people that are keeping them at bay by keeping they're fighting against each other because this group of people is also involved with the Vatican and they're of a different type of lifestyle also. So they go back and forth and they fight amongst themselves to keep them in check. Um, but I believe that check coincides with what you're talking about. There's nothing more powerful than getting people caught with their hand in the candy jar, if you will, and then using that information to keep them in play.
To keep them in line.
Well, that's what I mean. Keep them in play, keep them in line. I
So,
mean, obviously, they want people that they can use. They're not,
correct.
they're not
Well,
coming after the local gas station clerk. They're getting people that they can use for influence.
well, when you have people that become unalive, that maybe
Jason, that's a
want
good
to
point. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
that maybe want to come forward, right, and whistleblow on things, and suddenly they mysteriously crash on this one single engine commuter plane, or like Jason brought up in chat, Bill Cooper. If you guys don't know who Bill Cooper is, you should probably go on Amazon and buy that cheap paperback book he wrote called "Behold a Pale Horse." He predicted the attack on 9/11 many, many, many months before that attack happened, and even mentioned it would be pinned on a guy named Osama bin Laden, who was a CIA asset. And Bill Cooper is a guy that is in the know. And then what happened with Bill Cooper is there was a IRS entanglement that happened in his driveway, and he ended up being unalive that day, being gunned down. And that was, they didn't want him to open his mouth anymore. But he wrote a pretty good book, and I
You
urge.
said IRS entanglement.
That's what it was, over tax evasion
Oh,
issues.
okay. So
At that
they were trying to put him in that situation.
They were trying to unalive him as fast as they could because he was coming out with so many things that went against what this power and control of the New World Order. They didn't want any of this stuff out, and that's just one person.
Okay.
But when you're looking at current events, I urge people to do some deep diving on Yuval Harari, because this character, you just listen to his speeches, and when he's talking in front of a group of people, and you would think you're watching a science fiction movie because of the things that this guy wants to do
I'll look him up.
to human beings. I mean, this is where bugs, you're going to eat bugs. That's his brainchild.
Hey, Pun, Scarlett's asking what his name was again.
Noah Harari. Yuval, it's Yuval with the Y, Noah Harari. Okay. And just look up WEF,
Thanks, Chip.
Klaus Schwab, and then you will find Mr. Harari there. And then do a deep dive, do some YouTube video searches just to listen to what this guy says on a stage. It'll blow you away.
Yeah, it
And
sounds interesting.
And somebody mentioned, well, they already are in control. I don't believe that, but that's for another day. I believe that things are going to turn around, but we're going to go through so many gut punches before that happens.
Yeah, Rubo wanted to come on and say something, if you don't mind, Pun.
No, not at all.
Rubo, let me know when you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Excellent.
Sorry
Welcome,
if it gets a
Rubo.
little loud on my end. I have dogs that are out right now. But Pun, you actually mentioned it earlier. What you said was the Council 300. Well, I think it's originally called the Committee 300. There's actually a book. It's called the Committee 300. You guys definitely need to check it out. Came
Right.
out in 1992.
And what exactly is the details of that, just so everybody knows?
The details of the book are the people that are in control of everything.
Okay. And the number is what, 300?
Yeah. It's called what is it called? The conspiracy, I can't remember the full title. If you just Google the Committee 300, it should come up.
Okay. Yeah, well, we'll look at that. And again, that's something, that's the spin-off of this topic that we can always approach at a later time, as far as diving deeper into the actual organizations, their approach and what they're trying to do. Now, again, you were saying that not just this 300 would be encompassing this new world order. What ultimately do we really believe that there's only going to be a handful of people at the top of this if they're able to execute this? Say they were able to execute this chip situation. Say they can get. Now, again, I kind of believe the chip situation is kind of indicative of everybody having a cell phone. So I wonder if before, because getting intrusive as far as putting it into their bodies, I think that is something that'd be way down the road. People are very much more able to resist that. But everybody has a cell phone. Do we think that there is going to be a segue opportunity there to get that type of tech into a phone where you get the same outcome that you would get if it was in their body? Because I feel, again, and the reason why I say this is because we all heard this last 2 weeks about what they're going to do, the mandate for the kill switch in the vehicles. All right, that's not in your tissue. Again, that tissue thing I think is further down the road because of the intrusiveness of it. But you have everybody with a cell phone, and now you have the kill switch situation. What do we think? Do we think that this kill switch is just is an arm stretch to getting the situation with the phone? Can the phone give us, or give them rather, what they're looking for? Thank you, Ketch, very much. Thank you for the gifts.
Honestly, it's probably just the beginning. I mean, just the kill switch to the vehicle will probably just be a start. They'll probably go from cash money to just straight card money, to the point where they can control your money, full control. The next step will probably be making sure everybody's under a certain narcotic, probably legalize something throughout all states.
And why would
This
they? Why, as far as narcotics?
it's to keep the population dumbed down. They don't want us to be as
So you
quick
don't think that's
thinking.
already happening? You don't think the
It's
fluoride in the
already
water
happening. It's
situation
in
is
the
something?
makes. All of this, I believe they explained this in the Committee 300 on their advancements of full control.
Okay.
They have been doing this for decades,
Yeah,
guys.
this
Okay.
book came out in 92.
That
And
yes.
I'll never forget it because my mom would always read it, and I tried giving it a shot, but it was just too much information for like a 9 or 10-year-old to consume at once. So
But so we think that. So what I'm getting at is the kill switch. This new world order situation, obviously a new world order from a whole advantage point of actual execution, would have to be something like Pun was talking about, where they need to get control over a larger mass situation. Now that makes me also wonder, and this again my opinion per se, but I really think that the and I'm going for broke here because if they kick me off, they kick me off.
Careful.
I'm going to say that the COVID-19 situation was a precursor to try to do an event such as, again, not an invasive chip, but something where our phones are more biometric to get information from us, to kill switch, things like that. To have a situation where we are apt to accept these things, whether it be because of fear or because we think we're going to get an opportunity of a benefit of some sort.
Can
That's
I
what I mean.
can I say something to this real
Sure.
quick? Okay, so you just brought that up. I'm going to choose to call it the virus or the shot, okay? When that rolled out, okay, you have to understand the only way that and this was like a litmus test to the humanity worldwide is when they rolled that out, it was rolled out on what platform? It was the fear platform. So when people are living in
Oh,
fear,
absolutely.
when they see people dropping unalive in the streets and and you have the help from the mainstream media and all of your supposed governments are all on board with this, what is the motive? The motive is two birds with one stone. You make a S ton of money, and then you also get to put into people's bodies this substance called graphene oxide. And if you've ever seen graphene oxide and what it does when it is hit with frequency, it comes alive, it changes, it spikes, it looks like a sea urchin.
What would
And
be its
now,
purpose?
okay, so I'm glad you asked. Now, the inventor of this, when he discovered what he could do with this stuff, is it all rode on the coattails of helping humanity. Because when somebody takes medications, they take medications that goes throughout the entire body. Well, the graphene oxide was going to be the horse, so to speak, to carry certain medications to certain parts of the body, and they would be able to guide this graphene oxide into the human body and only affect the area in which the problem was. However, you get the military industrial complex behind this, and it will be proven they are the ones that were behind this shot and this vaccine. It will come out, in my opinion, because I've done some research. It will come out and you will see why. Because this all part of this military industrial complex. And when I'm saying that, I don't mean our military, our sons and daughters and our
You mean
fathers and
global?
mothers. I'm global. I'm talking from the Pentagon on and to all of the global militaries, the heavy hitters, if you will. That
Yes.
is the muscle behind it. They also have a ton of money, of dark money, that they can play around
Oh
with. I
yeah.
mean, we
Absolutely.
can't even get a straight audit from the Pentagon still, and it
No.
was more than 2.3 trillion that Donnie
Trillion.
Rumsfeld came out and said a day before the 9/11 attacks. So we as a society have got to understand that when you have inside your body, you have a pineal gland. And when that pineal gland is clouded and calcified because of all the crap that you eat and all the stuff they stuff in your water and in your air, it creates calcium on your pineal gland and you're not able to think clearly and be awake. Well, people are starting to become awake because they're realizing what's in their food. Now, the people that grow their own vegetables, harvest their own animals, they're probably got a lot cleaner pineal gland than most of the normies, as I call them, that are going around still with masks on their face. They're going to try this global pandemic thing again, but I don't think the people are going to take this second round again. I don't think they're going to do it. So when that fails, what is the new world order
Well,
going to do?
that's what I'm getting at. So
War.
if they
That's
try to do it again, that's what I'm getting at, because we seen initially how easily people would accept the situation, whether it be fear induced or whatnot. And then if these are just simple segues, I think, to, like somebody said in the chat, to a greater global situation. And what I mean by that is simply this: is that yes, I agree, a second round of a pandemic won't work. I really think you're not going to get another COVID-19 situation, because people are going to, and when I say people, at least 30-40%, because that's the high enough number that it's not an actual situation like it was the first time. So my point being, it's going to be something slightly different or slightly worse, in a sense that the fear will be so great that you will not be able to ignore it. Because again, to tie this to the topic is simply this: you see what the Vatican, you see what the Pope, you see what that these people of power do. You see these groups, the Economic Forum, things of that nature. You see them moving nowadays in plain sight. So they're doing these things right in front of us with no fear, and the truth is, nothing is actually coming of it. So my point to that is simply this: when it comes around again, it's going to be something much more precise. I think it's going to be technologically produced. I think it's going to be something in the tech industry. But I think it's going to be a situation where people are going to have to be beyond triggered. They're not going to put a mask on like they did. They're not going to worry about what the next person says like they did. That works once and only once. So I really think, again, but it worked. That's where I really think this kill switch is coming from. I think that is, we mentioned about the paper money. I think you're already seeing that diminish a little bit. I really think that was a tracer to what's happening now, because you're right. Because putting a kill switch in a non-electric Tesla vehicle or any other company that's doing that right now, that should it really should fucking scare people to the point I shouldn't even have to have this show Let's be honest. So therefore, if they're going to at some point 10 years from now, 15 years from now, and everybody here is going to hopefully be alive at that point, if you leave your house and you've exceeded 1,500 miles for that week, and they said emissions alert wise, you can't do that, and you're going to get groceries and they shut your car down, which is a viability at this point with that law they're going to pass, what are you going to do? Are you going to get out and walk? Well, you could. But ultimately, the whole point of this, of what Rubo, Punisher, and I, and anybody in the chat also agreeing, the New World Order, the steps to get to that point, the fact that bill exists should already scare you. This is no more a situation where you can say that we're conspiracy theorists, that we're hokey, that these things aren't happening. Do you understand that there is a kill switch law that's trying to go into effect to shut down non-Tesla cars too? This is a situation where they're going to tell you what you can spend. They're going to tell you where you can drive. They're going to tell you you're not going to Disney this year. So tell the kids you're not going.
You know what I could say to that? Everybody in chat, let me see here. 23 people in chat. The one question that you should be asking is, who the fuck are these people? Who are they to tell you what you can do, when you can do it, where you can drive, what you can drive? See, the people, because when this first round came around in 2020, everybody at my work that I talked to, I said, peaceful non-compliance. You start getting 40% of the people wearing a fucking mask, and all of a sudden it's going to become mandatory. It's what they look for is they look for how many fucking sheep that are going to follow and toe the line so that they can get these numbers, and they can produce these numbers on TV. And you saw the numbers on TV. Every second it was on TV of how many people were unaliving, and it was all bullshit. Okay, they had to revise their numbers, but people don't pay attention to that. And any law or any edict, any statute, any policy that goes against the U.S. Constitution is null and void. It's repugnant. You
Okay.
cannot, and people need to start standing up and waking the fuck up. And because I'm telling you right now that if you keep letting this happen, you are the ones, everybody, you are the ones that are to blame, because you allowed these assholes to
Okay.
these
Well, I want to keep it. I don't want to attack the people in the chat or anything like that.
No, I'm not attacking anybody in the chat. I'm talking about the assholes, the very few that want to run everybody's lives.
Okay.
You
Well,
are,
I want to tie this back into the New World Order situation. I don't want to go into the shot situation again.
no,
So
I'm
my
saying that
point,
was just a caveat to it. That was
I want to focus on the fact that if they have the ability to control the money, to control the vehicles, and again, I'm picking these things because, again, this is everyday life. I want to move into the fact that if there's a New World Order, they're moving into everyday life. That's my concern. Okay, I get that that they can fabricate a pandemic, they can fabricate these things, stuff like that, and eventually they have to give you back your freedom. Okay, because the economic engine has to run. But my concern is that when they start with a kill switch, or they start drawing paper money out of the system, that in turn is not something that they have to give you back. Is my concern in conjunction with the New World Order situation. When you have, again, the idea of a New World Order is the small group
Yep.
controlling the masses. So when you have a small group of people telling us, okay, when we pass this bill, you now have to have your car equipped with this item. That situation, I really feel in my heart, and I'm surprised that I'm seeing it, to be honest with you, that something like that would be something that people would allow happen. Like, I don't know if it's going to pass. We don't know that. But my fear is that I think it may pass. And if it does, this is just one aspect of every day. And again, I'm using the term every day because you go to the store, you go to Target, you go places, and these are things that you do every day. You do on the weekend. You go to Home Depot. if you got a situation where an outside force can control your every day, that is something that people should be concerned about. That is something people should to take pause to, because obviously they can't do or say anything if they say, "Hey, there's this microbe out there." No one's a scientist. Most people aren't scientists. They don't go, "Oh, really? Let me throw this mask on. Let me do this." But when it comes to telling somebody that bought a vehicle, they bought their own vehicle with their own money, hopefully, and now they're telling you can't drive it. My opinion, that is a true step. That is a true step. That is a step that they've never tried to do before in my life that I can remember. And that is also, I fear, if it does pass, if people do say, well, maybe it's for the best, then what in the hell could be the next thing? What could be the next thing after the kill switch?
If the United States falls, the world falls, because unlike the rest of the world, we have a constitution. Okay. And then when the people forget and don't read their constitution, it's not a contract for we the people. It is a letter to the government telling them what they need to obey. Because every one of those politicians that
Thank
put
you,
their
Chris.
hand on and take the oath, swear an oath to the Constitution. Now you'll see with this new world order, when they take away our weapons, when they successfully take away our weapons, that is the downfall of America. The reason that it doesn't fall is because we have weapons still. We still have the Second Amendment. But if that fails, there's your turning point. Because just like every other country, look at Australia, okay? Just like every other, look at New Zealand. Just like every other country that people have given up their weapons, they get controlled. And then it will go swiftly. You have the current administration in California doing anything and everything. You have the governor of New York, the placed governor of New York, talking about how they're going to restrict people and go after people for online free speech. It's already happening. You
When
just
you
have
say
to.
that, what are they saying they're going to do?
Well, they're put a committee together. Mrs. Hochul there in New York put a committee together, and they are going to determine what is misinformation or disinformation, and they're going to go after people and shut them down, and even worse if they continue. So who's the arbiter of truth? Is it the governor of New York or all of the bureaucrats that run New York City? So they're the arbiters of truth, and anybody that comes out against them and says, "No, hold on, I have facts here." Oh no, you're shut down. You're silenced.
Now,
That is,
have they said, now you said this particular woman, have you watched any video on her and
I
her
did. I
talking
saw.
about this?
She's online. You can look. Kathy Hochul,
Okay.
I believe her name is the governor of New York.
Okay.
When Cuomo got booted or left or resigned or whatever he did, held his head down, she came in. She wasn't voted in. She came in,
Okay.
and so just look up her recent.
What is she? What I'm getting at, what I'm curious of is if, and I get what they're saying there. Are they giving any specifics of what region of speech they're talking about?
She put it
In
out
other
there.
words,
She
if
tried
I go
to.
online and say, fuck that local pawn shop downtown New York, am I going to get arrested? Or is there a particular region of speech they're talking about?
She sprinkled. She covered a wide area, but she sprinkled it with online bullying. Okay. Now
Okay.
we all know that you commit a crime. Okay. You for your free speech. If you threaten somebody, you're committing a crime. Okay. If you threaten the president, you're committing a crime. If you yell fire in a movie theater and people get trampled, you're committing a crime. Okay. I'm talking about what she's doing, and others as well. But what she came out on live TV and spouted, I urge everybody to go look at that because it was only last week when she'd said it, is she's concerned about misinformation, okay, and online bullying. And okay, that wasn't just, it's and online bullying. Okay, but her main focus was on stopping the spread of misinformation or disinformation.
But they
And
didn't give an example of misinformation, though.
well, look what's coming down the pike, my friend. I mean, you've got an election coming up, and you've got another new variant coming out, another control thing. They always create this problem, and they get a reaction from people, and then they're the ones that come up with the solution. Okay, it's always a problem, reaction, solution with these people, and yet people are just they just mind numbingly go along with this stuff. And I'll tell you what, I have seen a lot more people waking up on all the different forums and the research I go on. There's a lot of people waking up, and there's going to be 10 or 20%, in my opinion, that are never. You can show them right in front of their face. Look at these people behind the curtain that are trying to control your lives, and if you show them, they're still not going to believe
Well,
you.
no, I mean ultimately you have people that if you're in a home, you're warm, you're happy, your kids are fed, you're fed,
Yeah,
your wife's fine. It,
blissful ignorance.
they don't want you coming into their home disrupting that.
Okay, well, there you hit the nail on the head. They don't want you coming into their home disrupting that, but eventually you can only hide in your home and you can just carry on with your normal life, and you'll think you might escape the chaos around you for a year or two, especially coming up, but eventually when it comes knocking on your door, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Are you going
Well,
to
if we
sit
talk
there and
about the
go,
10% you're talking about, they're going to do whatever they're told.
they're going to do whatever they're told, and the others are going to be, why didn't you tell me? Why
Yeah.
didn't
And
somebody
then
tell
and
me?
then you'll have a bunch of us, getting round up, I'm sure.
Well,
If but again, I think it's going to be a slower process than what you and I disagree on that. I think it's going to be slower. I think it's a lot of it has to do with things like what we're seeing now with the kill switch. I think they sprinkle this because people will accept things if it's slow enough, and they know that. So kill their cars. I think you're going to see that in the next 6 years. And then after that, I think it's more of a 20-year situation with the money. But I can promise you, I'll be dead by then,
I hope
maybe.
not. I hope
But
not.
I think in 20 years, I think the absence of paper money will be a very real thing by then.
Well, I'll bet a beer on that, or I'll bet a nice hoagie, okay, on that. That
I feel for a hoagie.
if you think about it for a second, you look at this administration in the first 3 years has printed, Donnie, more money than the previous administrations combined. You think about that for a second. So what does that do? That printing of that money, the trillions and trillions of dollars, especially during the 2020 thing,
Well, the more money you print, the less valuable it
the
is.
less value. So that $9 steak that cost you $9, say a year ago, is now $15 for the same steak. It doesn't mean that the steak's any different. It just means it takes more dollars to buy that steak now,
Well,
which
I've
actually
already seen that because you know what's something weird that I noticed that people probably didn't notice, and I ate it a lot. When they did the chicken situation 2 years ago and said chickens were scarce, so chicken wings went up from like $12 for a dozen to 16 or whatever. You know what went ghost that you don't see no more? And maybe it's just me, and I know because my local grocery store does not carry it anymore. I check weekly.
chicken gizzards.
Well, probably that. But I was gonna say the Bob Evans breakfast chicken sandwiches on the biscuit. You cannot get chicken items like that anymore. They're just gone.
Look at
They
how many
left
fires there
after
were,
they upped
Donnie.
the price of chicken.
Donnie, look at how many fires were happening in not only in our dairy, our poultry, all of these major distribution hubs going up in flames. Have you been paying attention to that in the last year?
Well, I've seen some of them. I haven't.
There's
I
been a
haven't
ton
studied
of
any
them,
of that.
ton of them. And then going on to the New World Order, Donnie, you've heard of the smart cities, right? Okay,
Yeah.
they want to pack all these people in. I work in this particular area, in this particular field, and I look above where I'm working, and I'm like, holy shit, when did all of that go in? And then somebody in my job came up to me and goes, well, that's the proposed new smart city they're putting in over here. And I'm like, what? I go, that whole thing was a mountain at one time, and now it's nothing but it looks like not condos, but just like cubicle apartments, Donnie. I mean, just thousands of
You
them.
know what? I said this when they made the new Total Recall. When they redid Total Recall.
Yes.
If you ever
Yes.
saw Total Recall, those little cubicle buildings that went into the sky. Everybody lived in these tiny little dark cubicle things.
Yes. It's exactly what it looked like.
I believe that's. I believe they make those movies like that to desensitize people to that's where you're going.
You're 100% correct.
I think ultimately getting people into tiny cubes and then, taking, obviously at that point there won't be paper money. And then of course, I don't even think you'll see the death of American industry when it comes to like cars, muscle cars, things like
We
that.
already
There won't
have.
even there won't even be cars.
Donnie, they got a Mustang. They got a Mustang they dare to call a Mach. They
Oh,
dare
don't
to
even
call a
bring that
Mustang.
up to me.
I had a Mach 1, right? This is a Mach 1
I see it. Yeah, it's a fucking go-kart.
electric. Yeah. Oh my God. And then the Camaro, they want to put a fully electric, uh, fully electric Camaro. And then the speaker, they have a speaker to make the engine noise when you
Yeah.
step on the gas.
When they brought that Mustang out,
Oh,
I honestly, the first time I saw one live, I was, and I'm not even a Mustang fan, but I can tell you that I see that as one of the downfalls of humanity. I do.
right.
I really do. It's just a terrible, terrible thing. And the fact that they call it a Mustang makes me want to vomit. So
Well, what people don't understand is you look at what it takes to make these batteries. You look at what it takes to put an infrastructure together, and you look at what it takes with people. Like say I wanted to travel to Pennsylvania, and I know I'm going to take 2 or 3 days. How long do you think it's going to take me in an electric vehicle? And how often do I have to pull over every 200, 250 miles and let it charge for 12 or 15 hours? Who's going to do that? People really need to like just wake up and just peaceful non-compliance. I'm just,
yeah, I
the,
mean the
I
electric
have the
vehicle
answer.
situation. I think some people are getting an idea that it's a joke.
It's
When
not
it
a
first
joke.
come out, it was like, oh, this new technology is going to save this. But the truth is, I mean, my biggest problem with it is not so much the inconvenience that you were discussing. My problem is the fucking 7-year-old kids that are underground digging the lithium out.
Yeah.
That is horse shit. And from what I've read, is that there's not even enough lithium to continue at this rate anyway. So I'm not sure what they plan on doing about electric vehicles. They're going to have to change the process in which they derive their energy at some point. And when I say some point, they're talking like 50 years.
I
So,
I thought South America just recently discovered one of the biggest lithium deposits in the world.
oh, really? That's convenient.
Yeah, it was like a couple years ago. That's why Russia and China they built the BRIC system to unite with South America because I'm not sure where at
Now, is that going to be enough to sustain when I say that, they were talking about once electric goes 100%.
No.
Is that
The answer
is
is
that
no.
deposit going to sustain us for 200 years?
No. The answer is no.
I couldn't tell you 100%. I don't
It
know. I
has to
I
didn't.
just,
have the
but I'm
answer is
just
no.
saying, in contrast to what I read, I mean, maybe that deposit was part of their discussion when I was watching that, but they seemed very much prone to lean towards that this lithium situation can't be sustainable long term is what I got from it. Now again, I just heard it in crossing, but also how many 8-year-old kids can mine for you? You know what I mean? So
Donnie, Donnie,
I have a whole problem with it altogether. The whole system to get the
Donnie,
battery into the vehicle. I have
yeah.
a problem with the whole system of it
Donnie,
because
ask yourself this question. When has the government ever came up with a plan to help humanity at the same time using humanity's money to spend and buy this technology and create this technology to turn around and benefit humanity? It's not going to happen, okay? We can't even get our own infrastructure up to date here in the United States,
oh
and
yeah,
yes, we're throwing billions and trillions of dollars to other countries to help them, but we can't even help our own infrastructure. And you talk about these cars or these batteries. the scarring that it leaves, the holes that it leaves in the earth. I mean, there's like Rubo said, there's not going to be enough there. The answer has always been under our feet because we're still in the Stone Age, in my opinion, and it's oil. But until we can break away from this high in the sky dream of everything's green energy, zero carbon footprint, it's all horse shit. It's not going to work. Okay, we have to go even higher than that. Okay, we have to get into other forms of energy rather than windmills and solar because it's great for here and there little projects to light up your she shed, but it's not to light up your whole home. You don't have the infrastructure for it, and the companies that build these EVs, the the power draw they need just to build these things, the city can't supply it. The towns or the counties that they're in cannot supply that amount of energy to these factories that want to go straight EV. There's just it's not there.
Well, I mean, what do we say when Elon says you're dead wrong about that?
Well, I say Elon didn't create he inherited that. Okay, he didn't. He's listen.
Because he's saying a small setup of his can power an entire city, period.
Well, I would seeing's believing, Elon. Seeing is believing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's what that's just what he says. So
Yeah.
he's very adamant about his ability to power the planet on a very small structure.
Unless he stole Nikola Tesla's schematics and he came up with the grabbing energy out of the atmosphere, then I'm on board. Okay, but I
Also,
don't.
I would love that. I would love that. I want again. I mean, I'm a fan of somebody trying to replicate that technology. Now, of course, again, the larger these companies get, the more prolific they get, the more less likely they are to ever give us anything like that. So I'm not going to hold my breath. So, but again, as I try to look at Elon and these other people, you try to think they're not part of the new world order. You try to think that they're for humanity. You try to think that they're here to do some type of saving grace, and the truth is they're not. Ultimately, as they get bigger, as they grow, as they expand, I see more and more of the NWO
Yep.
in these people that started saying to us when they started, hey, give me a chance, I'm going to do good for the planet. And in turn, they never follow through. It's, I think from the get-go, I think these people are placed in position to facilitate the NWO. I really do. Because now he is forefronted remote kill switch technology. So ultimately now it's getting cheaper because of him. And when it becomes so cheap that you can retrofit cars with it, again, that's one of many things that's going to stop people from living an everyday life. And I think that that's something that's pertinent. I think it's something that unfortunately, I was always a fan of saying, you know what, this is never going to happen. We're always going to have freedom. We're always going to be able to do something. But I'll be honest with you, this last 2 weeks, this kill switch law really set me back a bit. It really set me to the point, which is also fundamentally fell into this topic, with the simple fact that if they start retrofitting cars with a kill switch, then what the hell is the next thing that they're going to do? And that is a frightening situation. So hopefully, if we're lucky, the supposedly, because they represent their constituents, that this never passes. Because if you can't see the foregoing of what this tech and derivatives of other tech that can become beyond the kill switch and what it can take from you as an individual, then you are in trouble if you don't understand what their reach will be able to do to you. And that is the true essence of what the topic was. That is the true essence of why we don't want to get to that point, and why we as a society, we have the power to take that back. We have the power to not allow this NWO or this 300 or the 6 or whatever number it is of people that push these things. We need to stand up and say, you know what, you're not going to kill my vehicle. You're not going to tell me what I can spend. You're not going to tell me what I can eat. And you're not going to tell me what I can do with my family, because all of that is trending towards that. in turn, if it does, it's only going to spread its tentacles wider. So
The, unfor-
that's
the unfortunate thing to that, Donnie, is the simple answer to all of that mess is the answer is no. But on top of that, you will not comply. But on top of that, what you have is you have the bullhorn, the mainstream media that takes the very few, the minority of people, and they make them look bigger than the majority of people that are like, no, hell no, we ain't doing this. So
absolutely, and you're right. That part of it is correct because ultimately you see this minority being propped up, and then the masses that agree with anything that they see jump on board with that small minority because they feel it's everybody. That's one aspect that I hate about social media, even though I'm on it right now. But as you can see, I'm using it for its opposite effect. So
well, I think
eventually that's probably going to cost me.
no, no,
But my
I'm fully
point being is
supportive.
that you're right. You have the five people over here doing something. The media grabs those five people, makes you think it's 5 million, and then the other 10 million people that aren't sure now feel that they're sure.
Well,
And
that
that's
and
the
a bunch of
problem.
virtue signaling too. I mean, they get they have people have not all, okay, but those 10 million people have very soft spines and they don't think for themselves. They want to be told what to do. They want to
Well,
be
a lot
told
of humanity does,
what not
especially if they're given security. I
it,
mean, that's just
when
that
people
is as the last 20, 30 years, that is a situation in society that is perpetuated. So ultimately, and I know what that is. I grew up with nothing, and then I got a really good job. And having that really good job changed my life. So when that does happen to you, you feed into it. And did I ever feed into it? No, no. I took their money from them, but I never was a corporate mongler, never, not even once.
right.
But I took the money because I know what poor is like. So that part of it is it's hard to tell somebody to stand up and not agree with something when I'm different. But there are a lot of people, probably in my situation, that grew up with nothing, that got great jobs, that maybe even did better than me, were very successful. And when they are, they know who fed them, and they stay in that mindset.
Okay, but the point is I had a really good job before this one, okay? And yes, I made great money, but I stood on my principles, me, because I did not believe what was being fed to me was truthful. And so you have a choice. And your gut will tell you because everyone loves it when they're happy, fat, and they don't have to worry about income. Okay, but but if you really want to test the true nature of human will to survive, is lose that job by standing on your principles, walking
Well, that's what I
away.
mean. No one does that, is my point.
Donnie, I did it. You did it, right?
Yeah, but
Okay.
again, two of us can't change the world, no matter how
Donnie,
grandiose that
we're two,
sounds.
we're two people on a podcast, okay? And I'm sure there's millions of people out there that when they look at themselves in the mirror and they go, am I going to go ahead and drink the Kool-Aid because I know if I don't drink the Kool-Aid, I'm not going to be able to have this great job? I call bullshit because there's a lot of good people out there and all they're wanting is their freedom and their sovereignty. When they really look back at it and your freedom and your sovereignty that was given to you by whoever created you, your freedom and your sovereignty matters more than anything, no matter what they give you, no matter what they throw at you, no matter what new invention they tell you you need or some new this or that, because you got to look at the motive behind it. What's the
Yeah.
motive?
Well, Scott says a good thing. He says they got you by the short hairs with the money. There needs to be another way, but what? And that's a great statement because that's kind of what I meant from the essence of what I was saying is that once you do have the money, you're in the system, it's hard to stand up like that. And yeah, there are a lot of people that want to, and I'm sure there's millions of people that want to. But the hard truth is that millions just don't cut it. You need hundreds of millions of people to stand up. You need a billion people to stand up. And the truth is,
Well,
I think we fail as a society before we ever get a billion people to stand up. unfortunately. And that's unfortunately one of the side effects of being human, I think. We're never going to have enough Donnies, Puns, Rubos, Scotters, everybody in here right now, because everybody it's in here has been here for the last hour. So, but the other side of it is too, we got 25 people. Maybe we'll have 50 people next time that agree. Maybe we'll have 100. And maybe, just maybe, you can turn that 100 into 100,000. And maybe next time when we try to stop something, they don't arrest all of us and throw us all in jail. Because that's the thing. When you have 50,000 people do something, that's a very small number. They'll throw you in jail. But if you have 50 million people do it, it's kind of hard to throw them all in jail. So that's the change, the whole essence of humanity. Something's going to have to happen in the sense of our own personal humanity to let us say, you know what, we're done with this structure. Let's try something else.
I want to leave on this note, okay? And I will just say it like this. The amount of technology that we have been able to be alive to see in my 5 decades is how fast a story can come out, especially in the last, say, 10 years, how fast a story can come out, a narrative, if you will. And then within a matter of hours and maybe no more than a day or two, it is debunked and it is researched by people on the internet, digital soldiers, if you will, people that have the ability to go beyond, like you do, Donnie, go beyond the pale of what all of us were spoon-fed to believe and go deep down that rabbit hole and say, you know what? That's a lie. That is misinformation. So with the amount of technology that we have at our fingertips, holding in our hands at this moment, little microcomputers that we can go back and we can start researching into a news story that comes out or something that has happened, and then able to call it out and blast it on social media. And that is what they fear the most. They fear a public awakening, because if the people are awake, these people are going to run for the hills.
Well, I didn't even tell you in detail, they already shot down one of my promos and sent me a thing saying, you know what, you're not eligible for the FYP, is exactly what it said. Like, awesome. And then they only let 3 people see my other promo. So I knew this one was going to be tough, even though I'm glad people showed up. I'm glad people watched. But it was a combination of people sharing and liking and all that other stuff to get me onto the FYP. Because the algorithm, the computer that controls it, was never going to let that happen with this topic. So I want to also want to tell everybody, if you're a subscriber, make sure you subscribe. Some of you guys are due to resubscribe. I hope you resubscribe. I love that you support the channel. All the money does go back into it. Also, I want to also say a special thank you to Pun for supplying us with the LEDs behind us to make us more attractive. Look, we got 31 people in here because Pun sent us some lights. So we want to thank Pun for that and thank him for being an admin. I want to thank Rubo and Pun both for always being great contributors to the show. I knew they would be great for this topic. I knew this topic would be something that resonated with people. And I know people just want to have an opportunity to speak on how they feel about their day-to-day lives. And I hope everybody that watched had a good time. I want to again tell everybody that I love you guys. This channel is representative of you. You make this channel, so I can't thank you enough. And we're going to keep pushing the envelope, and we're going to keep pushing the powers that be. If they get rid of me, then we'll go to a different platform, but we're going to keep pushing. So I want to thank you guys again. Rubo, real quick before we go, was there anything else you wanted to add? I don't want to leave without missing anything from you.
Sorry about that. I'm on the road right now, but there is one thing that we all must need to do is to learn how to live off the land, as having free food, because I know for one thing that's a fact.
Oh,
that you want to grow plant wise. Hold on, I got bad signal.
be careful. Be
When it
careful,
comes to
Rubo.
plants,
If you're
every meat that you guys have has been genetically modified. So it is best to
Correct.
live off the land. That's what I'm trying to do right now. I got 20 chickens. I got some animals. We are in the makings of it right now.
How long have you been trying to do that, Rubo?
We've had a bumpy road along the way, but it's been a year right now.
How do you feel physically from it?
Um, we're not fully there yet because I'm
Okay.
too destroyed from the poison that's around us. That's all around us. Because
Okay.
when it comes to our food,
Oh,
everywhere we get
absolutely.
our food is the from the organizations that want to keep us suppressed.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, when you hear that every other country, every modernized country on the planet pretty much rejects all the food that's in our grocery stores, that answers the question for you. Why the U.S. is apt to allow their, maybe it's because of, I don't know, maybe we have so many people and we procreate so quickly that they're not worried about that. But I find it amusing that they need the worker bees, but yet they poison them. That's an interesting concept to me as far as keeping the societal economic engine, the financial engine for the powers that be to keep moving. If we're not here to hold them up, then ultimately they're not getting out of the society what they want. So I find that interesting, but that's a whole nother conversation. So I want to thank everybody. I know people are just coming in. I apologize, but make sure you're here, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to actually put a recording out of this one. This will be my first time I put it out as a recording. So people that have missed it can watch it. This was a great live. This was a great conversation. It kept moving. There was no situation that didn't have a pertinent point to it. So we're going to put this one out so everybody can watch it. So I want to thank everybody. I love you guys. Again, if you're subscribing, make sure you renew. If you're not subscribing, get in there and subscribe. Get this channel to blow up so we can get this message out to more people. Okay. I want to thank everybody for the gifts. I appreciate the support. And again, I love you guys. And I hope to see you Friday with another topic. I'll see you then. Take care.